Hey, it's Anthony Meisner with Land Title. Came to bring your Greater Metro Denver update. So let's kind of dive right into the big picture stuff. I mean, there's a lot happening. I wanted to break it down detached versus attached for you today. Interestingly enough, detached single family homes have risen 4.4% year over year on the average, but it's mainly because active units of inventory are down by almost 11%. There's been a lot of luxury sales, which is also pushing up that average sales price. Pendings under contracts, they are just not quite what they were last year. We were down about 5% month over month, 1.3% year over year, but the sold numbers are almost identical. Good news that we just don't have as much inventory, right? So, but you can get into other parts of the market, the attached side, those condo townhouse market. We do have about 7% more inventory, but buyers just aren't buying. And that's really forcing inventory levels up. So even though we have a little bit more inventory, buyers are clearly also just not participating as much. And that's creating a lot of pressure in this market. The average is showing 1.99% average sales price increase. But honestly, there's a lot of negatives in that part of the market, and we'll dive into that a little bit later. But this is also due to higher end sales taking place. If you look at active listings, detached single family, I like this one because even though it's the same as the last graph in many ways, it does show you by region what's taking place. So regionally, inventory swings are taking place at different paces in different markets, but places like Jefferson County, Denver County, Arapahoe, and Adams County, 10+% less listings than we had this time last year. But there are some markets that are not quite that bad, like Broomfield's only 4% less listings. So a little bit more inventory, a little bit better situation for buyers in all of those. For sellers in all of those marketplaces. You get into the attached market though, check this out. Certain markets, crazy amount more inventory. You've got Douglas County with 40% more inventory. But the city of Denver has been high in inventory for a while. It's only 4% up. Jefferson County, another 17% increase in inventory. You're seeing a lot of attached inventory in some of these specific markets come to fruition. So watch that. If you look at the month supply, this tells us that sort of what does it feel like to be a buyer or seller, right? Are they in balance? Are they not? I mean, 3 months of inventory seems like a fairly balanced market for the detached market. It's a little bit less than it was this time last year by about 11%, but it's not everywhere, right? I mean, Adams County, Arapahoe County, Denver County, and Jefferson County, yes, detached single family home inventory is less, but mostly we're still sitting right around 3 almost everywhere outside of Elbert, which shouldn't shock anyone. All these submarkets are very similar right now, which is good to see. Now you get to the attached market, we play the exact opposite tune. I mean, we go from a fairly balanced market detached to an extreme buyer's market. 6 months is the average across the entire metro area. The only places that are looking a little bit better than that, Adams County, 4.62 months. That's not so bad. Broomfield County's 5 months. But other than that, I mean, we're 5.5 or more. Denver is at 7.5 months of inventory. That is an astronomical amount more than we're used to seeing in any way. So, take that with a grain of salt. Help people understand the fact that there is a lot of competition among sellers, and buyers are really just restricted right now. Look at it by days in MLS. Clearly tied to that should help you understand that it takes 34 days to go under contract on average. We've seen 4 months in a row where it's fairly stable. This is kind of the saddle in the middle of the year. It should rise through the rest of the year, but it is interesting to watch certain places like Jefferson County, 28 days. Get out to Adams County, you got 40, or Elbert at 45 days. You look at the attached market, just like we were with our supply, this is the opposite because it takes so much longer to put a property under contract. On average, it's 62, but that's 62 days for the ones that are actually selling. There's a lot coming to market that never even gets sold. So when you have nearly a 40% failure rate on the market, this is where a lot of that's coming from, even more so probably in the attached market. That's the industry average was 39% last month. So when you're taking a look, I mean, it's taking a lot longer to sell. It could take a couple of months to go under contract. Clearly, you have to price it right, have the condition correct. If you're a buyer, there's a lot of opportunity out here right now, so that's always good to see. Now, what I was saying about the average sales price increase is largely due to this. So sold numbers taking place in certain parts of the market are really high. 38 sales over 3 million last month, that's 100% year over year change. 2 to 3 million, 67. That's a 24% rise year over year. And then you get down to like 5 to 600,000, which is kind of our meat and potatoes of the market. And you really have seen a drop off. So really 400 to 600,000, we have less sales taking place than we did this time last year. So less first-time home buyers participating and more money coming into the marketplace. The other one that's always surprising is the lower end of the market is starting to creep back. That 2 to 299 has some more sales, and 3 to 399, which means there are some compression with, poor quality homes, smaller homes in bad areas. That sort of depreciation is taking place in some parts of this market, and you can really feel it right now. The attached market, very similar situation, right? 84% year over year increase from 1 to 2 million. So the higher end of the market is doing remarkably well. And then it's everybody else is just struggling. And that's what's causing what we were talking about. So it is a tough part of the market. But luxury is doing what luxury does, and it acts very different from the rest of the market sometimes. If you look at month supply of inventory and days on market by price range, this really does kind of give you a pretty normal view of what happens in the market. The lower end of the market has everybody qualifies, so it should have a lot more buyers in it. You see under 2 months of inventory, under 400,000, then you get into the middle part of the market and you go from 400 up to about a million, and you're sitting somewhere 2.5 to 3 months of inventory. And then, of course, as it gets more expensive, less buyers qualify, and really you just have a surplus of inventory still in the luxury price points. It is interesting, though, because across all price ranges, our days in MLS are almost the same. And what that tells us is it tells you if it's a really good product, if it's priced right, if it's in good condition, it's going to sell no matter what. If you don't do all the right things, then you could end up like in part of that failure rate, right? Now, the attached market, for very little rhyme or reason, you're going to find a buyer that comes in and out of that might be a good fit. So clearly it takes time to do that when you just don't have enough showings. So if you look at the days on market, you can see 60 plus days on market. Although look at some of the luxury last month, 28 days from 2 to 3 million, and there were 7 months of inventory. So the cool new stuff that's really done well is coming to market, and their buyers are waiting. They're patient, right? But it is that same situation, 6 months of inventory or more across the board at every single price range. It's just tough in the attached market right now. Now, how does that affect price? I think that's the real question that we always like to offer. Average sales price in detached single family has been bouncing around at a really slow, steady pace, basically since 2023. And what you can see is we're just slowly kind of churning that wheel, right? I mean, people have to move, they're moving. They don't really want to take a cut in price. So it's just very stagnant, it's very stable, right? And stability in a tough market is not a bad thing. I mean, you can see from 2012 all the way through 2022, we had a booming market, right? But when we get into the next market cycle, like we're in now, stability is the best you can ask for, because that's bound to happen for a while as a lot of the country is really suffering. You can see that, an average home last year versus this year went up $34,000 in value, and that's really not terrible, right? Year over year, change of 4% is a lot. Month over month, we're down on our seasonal trend like we would normally expect to see. The attached market, this is where in a tough market, attached just doesn't ever fare quite as well. But you can really see some of that shift. I mean, we went from the peak in 2022 from about 500,000, and it's just slowly crept its way back down closer to 400,000. So we've seen some real price depreciation in this marketplace. It does depend on what market you're in, but you can really tell that we just aren't selling them for as much as we were before. Now, year over year, it showed 2% increase. Well, largely due to that luxury price point that's sold, but you can see it bounces around a little bit. That average sales price is a little volatile and attached, but it is a clear trend down. Now, who knows how long we're going to be here, but clearly until buyers come back into this marketplace and something changes for them, their behavior isn't going to change because it's not an affordable product. We keep building a bunch of new apartments, and when you can live in Class A apartment or Class B or C attached, people tend to just keep renting, right? Especially when there's a lot of incentives to do so right now with all the inventory. If there's any other questions, concerns, please reach out to me. Always happy to help and share other data or information with you. I'm Anthony at Land Title. Catch you next time.